Hello, dear friends and dear colleagues. Welcome to another session of the Arctic Dialogue here in Skolkovo, when we are discussing the issues of sustainable developments of the Arctic region and how business community can become part of the solution for these global challenges. I am Alexei Kalinin, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. This is unusual format. It's a bilateral format. And our today's discussion is done in partnership with the School of International Research, named Rajaratnam, with the Nanyang Technological University of Singapore. And the key issue for discussion today is how to make sure that the Arctic transit would be competitive on the global scale, and what can Russian and Singaporean companies can do to make sure that we achieve this globally significant outcome. And today I'm joined in this studio and also online. We are having diplomats, businessmen, and experts from different fields of knowledge. And jointly with them in this kind of cross-disciplinary format, we'll try to attempt to find answers to these questions and also identify the following paths of our mutual cooperation. And now, to launch this discussion, I would like to invite the president of the Moscow School of Management Skolkovo, Andrei Vladimirovich Sharonov, to say several welcoming words. Andrei, over to you. Thank you so much. Hello, dear ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Alexei. And I'm happy to welcome all of the attendees of this Russian-Singaporean Arctic Dialogue. And I'll begin by making some very important statements of what is connecting the Moscow School of Management Skolkovo and Singapore. We are a very young school. We've celebrated only 15 years of our operations. And today's dialogue is done jointly with the School of International Research, named after Rajaratnam, with the Nanyang Technological University, and also with the support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation and the Embassy of Republic of Singapore. This whole topic of Arctic development is very important to us, and we have been involved in studying this field for a number of years. In addition to research related to the Arctic region, on a regular basis, we've been having Arctic dialogues, where jointly with the business community, with government agencies and experts, we are attempting a wide range of issues related to sustainable development of this very harsh but fragile region. A special attention is placed to the issues of developing logistics, the Northern Sea route, and sustainable Arctic navigation, which are very important topics. And for the development of shipping projects in the Arctic, we need cutting-edge technologies. And in this sense, joining with our Singaporean colleagues making all sense, because Singapore has best shipbuilding technologies and the front edge experience in developing onshore and offshore infrastructure. We know that Singapore is very interested in sustainable shipping technologies, and also designing of the marine and oil production facilities is a very highly competitive global products of Singapore. They have technologies of the marine drilling, also those technologies which will be the right fit for the Arctic conditions. And we are hoping that we will have a fruitful operations and will have good consequences for the Arctic development. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrei. We've had a small technical glitch when you've been speaking of how we are interconnected with Singapore. I will allow myself to say once again that the Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, was among those people who were building this school. And for quite a long time, Lee Kuan Yew was actually an honorary member of the International Advisory Council. Several times he had been speaking in the Skolkovo School of Management. Those historic ties which we have with Singapore is a very, very significant support. And support of such a very big person is very important for us. And thank you very much, Andrei Vladimirovich. Now I'd like to give the floor to our Singaporean partners for the welcoming address. And I'm introducing the executive chairman of the School of International Research of Rajaratnam within Nanyang Technological University, and the special envoy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Singapore, Mr. Ong Keng Yong. The floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Mr. Andrei Sharonov, President of the Moscow School of Management, Skolkovo. Mr. Sam Tan, Special Envoy of Singapore for Arctic Affairs. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Warm greetings from all of you to the Russia-Singapore Arctic Dialogue. As a leading research and graduate teaching institution in strategic and international affairs in the Asia-Pacific region, we at RSIS conduct policy-relevant research on many subjects. Today, RSIS is very happy to have this opportunity to collaborate with Skolkovo for the first time and to talk about Arctic as a global transport corridor and sustainable Arctic shipping. The COVID-19 pandemic has had major social and economic impact. It has placed the governments of many countries in a difficult position, altering the way in which we live and work. We need to realign domestic, regional, and international priorities. Social and travel restrictions put in place by governments to manage the public health situation save lives, but they are having wide-ranging negative results for the economy, society, and international relations. To moderate the impact of COVID-19 on ports and shipping, we have seen the maritime industry introducing new ways of working to ensure business continuity. In many cases, this has led to new business models, especially in forcing companies to go digital, and in most instances, earlier than they have ever wanted. We saw various companies diversify their manufacturing locations and supply chains. At this juncture, we are not certain what permanent effects will there be on the global supply and trade patterns. Having said that, certain changes in the supply chain and the shipping sector have been underway even before the COVID-19 pandemic. The warming climate worldwide saw greater seasonal temperature fluctuations. In the Arctic region, more extensive summer melting means shipping routes are accessible for a longer period. As the Arctic waterways now emerge as a viable transport corridor, all authorities and stakeholders are actively assessing the new opportunities and their implications for global transportation and logistic infrastructure development. As a maritime nation and a global port, Singapore must keep up to date with what is happening in the Arctic region. We have today a panel of experts who will help us better understand the new potential in the Arctic region and to put on the table avenues for cooperation with our Russian counterparts. To be sure, new opportunities come with new challenges. We need to understand such challenges and how to manage them in cooperation with all concerned parties. With the urgency in managing the impact of climate change, assessment of the environmental ramifications from increased shipping activities in the Arctic must be taken into account. As the shipping industry is now geared towards the IMO's 2020 vessels emission regulations, this green shift will come with new technology and new logistical solutions. RSIS research shows that since joining the Arctic Council as an observer state in 2013, Singapore has consistently supported the sustainable development of the Arctic. I look forward to Singapore's participants on the panel today elaborating further on this. We should all find today's discussions and exchange educational and useful. Thank you. Back to you, LSA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Indeed, I have to agree with you that it is right now that our discussion is very, very relevant as we are living in the era of this kind of pandemic where we do not know how things will end. But definitely we are being able to see those changes and disruptions of the global supply chains when each and every alternative to the existing logistical transportation routes is becoming very important for global businesses. And in this way, by considering the Arctic region as not only a promising global transit route in general, but in particular, by considering it as a possible current alternative or maybe a backup route for the main transportation hubs and routes. This could be the focus which is especially relevant today. Well, anyway, shall we move on to the presentations? And Nikolai, I would like to ask you, Russia right now is chairing the Arctic Council. And could you please say a couple of words on what place the whole Arctic shipping and Arctic transit is taken in the agenda of the Arctic Council, as Russia is presiding over the Council, and also maybe you'll touch upon the issues of international cooperations. Nikolai Korchunov. I'm representing Korchunov, the special envoy of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. He is also the chair of the committee of the highest officials of the Arctic Council. Nikolai, over to you. Hello, dear members of this round table today. It's very pleasant for me to see our colleagues from Singapore, the country which is relatively, remote from the Arctic region, but still expressing the growing interest in the development of the Arctic region and to enhancing the operations in the Arctic region. We are interested in building political and economical ties with Singapore. Now, we are having the Russian-Singapore session of the Intergovernment Commission for Cooperation, which is a very important forum for the development of our bilateral ties with Singapore. Singapore has the whole range of developments and competences when it comes to shipbuilding, maritime navigation, building maritime infrastructure onshore and offshore, as well as efficient management of the maritime shipping and other important and highly demanded competences, which makes Singapore a very interesting partner for cooperation with the Russian Federation, both in terms of developing the Northern Sea route, NSR, and also in terms of building the wider transportation route corridor, which would ensure the efficient and promising and sustainable, as well as economically and ecologically viable transit between Europe and Asia. Russian Federation until 2023 will be presiding in the Arctic Council, where the Singapore is also an observing country. And in this relation, it is important for Singapore and Singaporean organization and companies to be engaged in a constructive dialogue of working with the different bodies of the Arctic Council. We wish them to be proactive in contributing to the work of the Arctic Council. We have a task force on sustainable development. And in the absence of the mechanisms of economic cooperation within the Arctic Council, it is this task force, this working group, is of special interest because this working group is very close to both the economical issues and to the issues of enhancing social and enhancing economic well-being. And this is in line of the expectations of our populations, of the Arctic population. So we have to make an effort to make sure that people still live in Arctic, so that the young people would choose Arctic as their place of living and building their careers. And I also would like to point out, I also would like to notice the relevance of this topic that we are reviewing today in the context of the strategic plan of the Arctic Council, which has been adopted at the ministerial session of the Council on May 20 in 2021 in Reykjavik, Iceland. And look at the wordings and look at the criteria which are part of this plan, which are still relevant for our today's conversation. And among them, we are speaking about the importance of developing the low-emission, low-carbon economy. We are deliberating about efficient energy solutions and about sustainable navigation. And of course, we have to understand that the developing of the NSR, Northern Sea Route, as the global transportation venue, we have to use the modern cutting-edge technologies, and it should have the positive effect not only for the economies and the environment, but also for the local population living in the Arctic region, including indigenous population. And by the way, this is the good argument to support the Northern Sea Route. I would like to draw your attention to one of the projects which is being implemented as a part of the Task Force on Sustainable Development. And this is the project for the development and helping to use the Northern Sea Route, NSR, for the exports of the products of the local manufacturers and an export of the products of the indigenous populations living in the Arctic region. We can also see that there is no alternative of developing sea transportation, and the statistics is saying that we have the steady increase of the marine traffic and marine transportation, and now we can see that right now we have high points of tensions in some locations, and they are related to maritime transportation. We can also observe that we have container jams and other issues, irregularities, and we have to think that this global system of maritime transportation, which we are having today and which we are discussing today in the world, and the Northern Sea Route, NSR, has already a part of it. We want to make sure that this shipping would be ecological, would be economically viable, and also would have a social dimension to it, which is very important for ensuring safety and security of the global supply chains, which has already been mentioned by our colleagues. I also would like to mention, speaking of the topic of the sustainable shipping in the northern latitudes and developing Northern Sea Route, I think it is very important to focus our attention on identifying both positive aspects and sides which will be activated as we are engaging into NSR and decreasing carbon emissions and optimizing transportation corridors and routes and increasing efficiency, as well as enhancing safety of maritime transportation. And this should be a part of our dialogue. And now, Currently, we are at the very beginning of this journey, and I would like to point out that Singapore has every knowledge and every capabilities and opportunities to be able to be a partner for the Russian companies and organizations, and we are interested in this type of partnership in the interest of developing sustainable and safe and global system of maritime transportation, and of course, part of which could be the Arctic region and the Northern Sea route, and this wide transportation corridor, which we are going to be discussing today. Thank you, Alexei. Thank you very much, Nikolai. Indeed, I have to agree with your statements that whenever we speak about the sustainable Arctic navigation, we're not only speaking about ecological aspects, but the whole range of issues which can be attributed to this kind of integral concept of sustainable development, including social perspectives and social issues. We have to remember what will be the impact of the Arctic navigation on the development of the local communities, both positive and negative impact it could be. And the fact that you've mentioned the participation of local companies and local businesses and opportunities which the shipping will open to these local communities and businesses and small companies which are run by the local population. It's a new economic opportunity which is being opened due to the development of the Arctic navigation. And I would like to give the floor right now to Mr. Evgeny Tiagaradze, the Regional Group Director for Russia, Central Asia, and East Europe, Enterprise Singapore. It's an Enterprise Singapore, and if I understand it correctly, it's a governmental agency of Singapore which is conducive to the development of the small and medium businesses and companies. Mr. Tiagaranch, I think it's a very interesting promise. And what is your perspective on potential of developing the Arctic region? When we speak about the navigation and shipping for the small and medium companies of Singapore, and even wider for the economic development between our countries. Over to you, Mr. Tiagaranch.
Spasiba, first of all, allow me to thank the Skolkovo School of Management and the Rajaratnam School of International Studies for organizing this event. You're right, Enterprise Singapore, in a sense, is an economic agency. We're part of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Our role is really to grow Singaporean companies. And by grow, what we talk about is to look at how we build their capabilities, to help them to internationalize and to help them to innovate. We're also in charge of looking at how to develop Singapore as a hub in areas of like developing Singapore as a startup hub, where innovation is an essential part. And if you know Singapore, we have been a trade hub for probably about 400 years. What's different is that we've evolved. So some experience in that sense in terms of evolving as a trade hub in which essentially a transit corridor serves. The state of play, I would say, of the Arctic today is one very much of natural resources, where you look at minerals, where you look at oil and gas, and where you look at fish, seafood, and fishing. And essentially what the companies and the industries around them look at is unlocking these resources so that they could be available globally. Some of our Singaporean companies have been involved in that journey. Two that come to mind, Keppel Fels, for example, a company that develops and designs ice class and ice breaking vessels as well as floating vessels. And they've built many variations, different kinds of vessels, and had partners and delivered vessels even to Russia. For example, the Dmitry Mendevev, which is an LNG bunkering vessel that was delivered earlier this year. And we think that there'll be a few more coming on stream in time to come. Another company is New Star. New Star supports the requalification of jackup rigs, and they provide subsea and surface wellheads. Many of these companies are looking at different opportunities around the world, and the Arctic is no different. In fact, I believe some of them are tuned in today hoping to learn about the experiences from the panelists here and to understand more of the opportunities in this region. But let's talk about the future state of play of the Arctic, in which a transport corridor would be essential. And I'd like to focus on three areas: trade, innovation, and enterprise. When we look at trade, essentially for us, trade involves three areas: physical, digital, and regulatory connectivity. And when we look at the physical aspects of trade, I think it's common knowledge that the Arctic presents opportunities in terms of shortening the voyage time from the west to the east. For example, we expected the voyage period to be shortened by about 40%, if I'm not wrong, from Europe to Asia. We also expect that in today's context, the Arctic provides an alternative trade route in which supply chains can be redistributed and rechanneled, particularly when there are congestions. And this is an opportunistic moment for the Arctic. From a digital perspective, I think where infrastructure is also important. And in developing a trade corridor, there is a need for intermodal connectivity, not just from a sea trade route, but the ability for the region to connect across the Arctic, to connect different types of food, services and goods. And this is where the digital aspects come into play. Some signs have already started to show. We know of the Arctic Connect program that for example, Megaphone is introducing, and that's involving subsea cables. We know that OneWeb in Canada, for example, is bringing connectivity to the Arctic. We all know that data centers are obviously prime for the Arctic because of the energy savings they present. But when we look at data centers, we also see people like Rostelecom setting up in Murmansk region. We see Herman IT setting up in Kajani in Finland. What's interesting about this is Kajani is a paper industry that is evolving into a technology hub. And Murmansk was known for fishing and tourism, and it also has the potential to evolve into a new kind of industry. And we're seeing other signs of this across in different parts of the Arctic today. In Sweden in particular, you're seeing different kinds of new circular economies starting to evolve. You see companies like H2 Green Steel, which is producing steel with hydrogen. You're seeing companies like Nordvolt, which is developing a gigafactory for battery cells. What's interesting about them is that people like Nordvolt are using and harnessing hydro and leveraging on the minerals in the region like nickel to develop their battery cells. In doing so, they are creating new opportunities and industries to grow in this area. Companies like BMW and Volkswagen are today looking to work with them to leverage and also to reduce their carbon footprints. And these are areas in which the rest of the Arctic can develop. We know Norilsk is, for example, very rich in nickel residues. And these are areas in which they can be developed further. In the area of food, for example, there are new food industries being developed. In Finland, you're seeing Arctic Warriors, which look at superfoods. You're seeing Grocer, which is a Canadian company, developing 140 different types of products in temperatures of minus 55. With that, there are many opportunities that are starting to develop, and what's interesting is they are all new industries that are starting to evolve out of the Arctic. 3 observations from my mind come out of this. There is a diverse and growing number of new industries from these countries. All of these companies are Arctic members countries, and all of them are actually located further up north. As these industries grow, there will be a need for efficient logistics supply chains, and this makes the importance of a transit corridor or a trade route extremely important. Whilst Singapore and the Arctic have adverse climate conditions, I think there's still very many opportunities, as our fellow panelists have also highlighted today. Singapore is part of a region which is Southeast Asia. This is a community of about 600 million people. In the pre-pandemic times, it was an economy that was growing at about 5% in terms of GDP. We have a growing middle class, and we have a growing manufacturing center. What this means is essentially there is a growing demand for commodities, there is a growing demand for consumerism, and there is a growing demand for food. And this is where there could be opportunities in terms of collaboration with the Arctic as well. Singapore is also today a redistribution hub in the midst of Southeast Asia, for which transport corridors can connect. And this is where the intermodal connectivity could also play a part. And we see this as possible areas where we could possibly explore how we could develop further. Singapore also has a fair amount of experience in terms of adapting and developing ourselves as the intermodal hub and familiarizing ourselves with international rules and standards. And this is important in terms of facilitating international traffic in any kind of trade corridor. And this is something that Singapore could also present as an opportunity. And lastly, I think it's the Singaporean companies again, which I think my colleague Simon will speak on a lot more later in the panel. I talked about Keppel and New Star, and Keppel is not just doing rigs or vessels anymore. Keppel is also looking at how ammonia can become a bunkering product. New Star is looking at deep sea mining for rare earths, and these are future industries and innovative industries in which we can also think about how we can harness and collaborate and develop new ideas together. So I think in conclusion, I would say the opportunities are endless. It's a new frontier. It's a blank piece of space in which we can develop together, and we're looking forward to seeing what new possibilities there could be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Спасибо большое, господин.
Tiagarach, I would like to say that especially we are pleased to hear that it's a huge space. It's a bright picture that you have drawn today, and we are very happy to hear that. And also, in our research, in the dialogues that we are engaged in here in Skolkovo School of Management, we are, of course, sometimes touching upon these different issues, but we do not always see this kind of full picture. Thank you for this wonderful review. And we are especially pleased to hear what you've been saying, that Singaporean companies are looking at the Arctic region like in any other developing and emerging market. This is exactly this kind of note and this kind of topic which we would like to develop here in Skolkovo. We would like to move in this direction because indeed it's about understanding that the Arctic region is a developing market, emerging market. It's a separate region and an emerging market, which like in other parts of the world is a point of attraction for companies, for businesses, for entrepreneurs. And we believe that this is the right point of view to the development of the sustainable Arctic development in the long term. And of course, I think it is very important that you've mentioned all different sectors of the economy. And in interesting way, they are part of the concept of the blue economy, of the oceanic economy, that each part can be put together. Sometimes in Skolkovo we're saying that in Arctic there is no other economy except of the oceanic economy, because it's like an encompassing, all-encompassing concept, which enables us to have a very holistic perspective. The only place where I would allow myself to disagree with you, it's about the climate. I believe that this kind of harsh environment closer to the equator in Arctic is going to be better and better in terms of climate as the global warming is happening. Let's think about how we are going to be living in the future in the warmer, in more comfortable, Arctic region, which is quite attractive already now. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Tiagarach, for your wonderful and amazing review and presentation. And I think it was quite optimistic about the Russian-Singaporean communication and cooperation. And as we'll be listening to the other presentations, we'll see the perspectives of the other participants. Once again, thank you. And now I would like to build upon what has been mentioned by Mr. Tiagarach, that even today and in the foreseeable future, the economic future of the Arctic region will be largely related to the field of energy, and also with hydrocarbons mining. But as we understand today, given the technological development and increasing demands for sustainability of this kind of mineral extraction, this could be a totally different industry, an industry which will be higher technological and very safe. And I would like to give the floor right now to Andrei Saruchev, the head of the Department of the Maritime Transportation of the Gazprom Neft Company. Andrei Saruchev. And my main question is, what are the projects of developing NSR Northern Sea route for the Gazprom Neft Company? What are you exploring right now? And what is your perspective on the possibility of cooperating with the Singaporean side? Hello, dear colleagues, and the Arctic region is a very historical region of the Gazprom Neft has been in the region for quite a long time as the company. At the same time, it is a strategically important region for the development. Speaking about the hydrocarbons, the company is mining them in the Arctic region, both in onshore sites and facilities, but also offshore sites. We have been doing the round-year geological explorations of the offshore deposits and the prospecting license blocks in the basins of the Barentsev Sea, of the Chukotsky Sea. And also the production projects are done 365 days were taken from the gas condensate deposit and the Prirazlomny oil deposit, oil field. We believe that the success and efficiency of those companies and the competitiveness of the Northern Sea route in the maritime navigation in the Arctic region is directly correlated with the possibility for companies to engage in those technological, and operational challenges which are being stipulated by the weather conditions of the Arctic region. I mean, harsh, very deep freeze temperature, limited visibility for the most part of the year, and very fragile ecological situation in the Arctic region. As for the technical development, we can see that, of course, a special role is played today by the constructions of the unique vessels. It's an ice class or Arctic class vessels which can do the year-round transportation, building icebreakers, building infrastructure, and supporting vessels for bunkering infrastructure, supply vessels. And speaking about technologies, it is important to continue develop both technologies of the hydrocarbon production in the ice class conditions, and also develop the technologies of the emergency and rescue operations, such as technologies of evacuations from the ice class platforms. In the harsh ice conditions, we have to develop the telemedicine conditions for providing emergency medical services. We also have to develop technologies of the oil spill capture. As for the operational challenges, I'm speaking about increasing efficiency due to using very promising kinds of the fuel, using digital technologies which will enable us to raise efficiency of planning of our logistical operations. I believe this is our vision, yes? Thank you very much, Andrei. And yes, I have to say that if I do the content analysis of your presentation, you were using the word technologies a lot. I think it's the key issue. It's a very important issue to fully implement, realize the Arctic's economic potential. At the same time, we have to do it sustainably. The issue of technologies is all important. And I think you've been speaking about technologies related to your industry, to the oil production, gas production, but you're speaking about the digital technologies, about other technologies. Indeed, I believe that Arctic can be conceived as a global innovation laboratory, which is enabling you to test the cutting-edge technologies which later on could be implemented not only in this region but also in other parts of the world. And in this sense, the Arctic becomes a very important line for business, also in terms of the fact that this is the innovation and development related industry. You have emphasized in your presentation it's about the new types of fuel, the maritime fuel, and the low sulfur types and alternative types of maybe carbon-free fuel, like the nuclear type of icebreakers and the nuclear installations. We're going to be watching these trends and the development of these technologies. Some of these technologies have been commercialized, yet other technologies are still to be commercialized. And sometimes some of the technologies are in the test stage currently, and it will be very, very interesting to see what kind of technologies are available with our Singapore site, which could be integrated into this experience. Speaking about energy, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Christopher Lin, the Senior Research Fellow and Head of Publication of the Energy Security Institute, ESI, of the National University of Singapore. Dr. Lin, Christopher Lin, I would like to hear your point of view on what kind or how the energy development of the Arctic is seen by you, by your institute, and in terms of the energy supply of the onshore infrastructure as well as cities, and also from the standpoint of supplying transportation connectivity with energy. And we understand that in the existing modern discourse and conversation, we could be speaking only about a low carbon development of the Arctic region. And since the Arctic has such a huge importance for the climate on our planet, climate on Earth, we know that it is in Arctic that we have to use cutting-edge technologies, the best technologies in terms of its low-carbon component and low-carbon potential. I'm speaking about nuclear energy and some alternative types of fuels. But again, Dr. Lin, the floor is yours. Would you be so kind to share your vision of this issue? The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to this very important event. My focus is on energy security and the role of the Arctic. And what I'd like to say is that Russia is an important Arctic actor. Its status in the Arctic region will become even more important as the Northern Sea route opens up and trade flows along the Arctic Ocean between Europe and Asia. Now we are in Singapore, and being situated outside the Arctic, I am not an Arctic expert the way people from the Arctic know the lay of the land. But what we try to do from Singapore is to try to add value to the conversation by contextualizing Arctic developments in the global context. And we always ask ourselves, what can we do to contribute to the sustainable development of the Arctic? And what does the Arctic offer that can contribute to the sustainable development of the wider world, including here in tropical Southeast Asia? And what I've noticed is that compared to the mainstream media emphasis on the impact of climate change on the Arctic and its global effects, the role of the Arctic in the context of the global energy transition has not received as much attention as it should have. And at ESI, we look at the growing role the Arctic plays in facilitating international energy security and in supporting the global low carbon energy transition agenda. So we look at the Arctic through the lens of natural resource development, R&D on energy systems, energy governance discussions towards sustainable energy solutions, and in developing resilient remote energy communities. So the Energy Studies Institute of the National University of Singapore has been convening Arctic activities focused on sustainable remote energy access and we hope that we can continue to engage our Arctic counterparts in this regard. And Russia is now the chair of the Arctic Council, and I have been attending the Sustainable Development Working Group meetings. And what I noticed is that there is actually a Sustainable Development Working Group project called the Arctic Hydrogen Energy Applications and Demonstrations. So when we talk about future energy, hydrogen is a very interesting potential source. And Singapore is interested in the global hydrogen developments. We are very interested in the topic of the hydrogen economy. This is an area where I think there can be potential collaboration between researchers across the world, including our colleagues in Russia in the future. And I will keep my presentation short. And in a wider context, I would say that generally speaking, Singaporeans are still not very familiar with the Russian Arctic. And I hope that we can work closer together to facilitate greater intellectual and people-to-people exchange in this regard. So I will end my presentation here. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое, доктор Лен.
Thank you very much, Dr. Len. I think you've touched upon a very important topic, hydrogen economy. You know that in Russia, this topic is also very, very relevant. And as of today, the Rosatom State Corporation has been implementing a number of initiatives aimed at production of hydrogen using the nuclear power, speaking about the green hydrogen, to make sure that we could supply this hydrogen to the global market. We know that we're speaking about a very early stage of hydrogen research and development, but still I think there is a very, very big space for our mutual cooperation and development. And also, we are speaking about supplying Arctic with sustainable green energy, and this will also be a very important aspect and part. And we're speaking about new types of fuels which could be both mined and being produced in the Arctic. This is a very, very important aspect indeed. Thank you so much for your presentation. And I would absolutely agree with you. Not only Singaporeans know not enough about the Russian Arctic. I will tell you that even in Russia, not everyone has a clear understanding of what Arctic could offer. And also the fact that we are having these Arctic dialogues. This initiative is aimed at raising awareness of the wide range of stakeholders and trying to make sure that the Arctic would truly be an appealing region as the market for all types and all kinds of companies and businesses. And primarily, we're speaking about innovative business, high-tech business, since our common goal is sustainable development of the Arctic region, which could be achieved only by this type of companies and these type of businesses. Thank you so much, Dr. Len, for your vision and your perspective. And now, with your permission, I would like to give the floor to Evgeny Ambrosov. Evgeny Ambrosov, the deputy chair of yet another Arctic company, the Russian company Novatech is the name of the company, and he is also the chair of the Arctic Business Council, which is combining companies, very proactive companies and businesses which are working in the Arctic region. And it is a very important perspective of your business association. Evgeny, over to you, please.
Right. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear participants of the Russian-Singaporean Arctic Dialogue. The Arctic region has been getting more attention internationally in the past years. For those of us who has been working with the region for decades, it's not a surprise because the Arctic holds the solutions for some of the challenges the whole world has. In the Arctic, you will find fish to feed the world. You will find plenty of energy sources like oil and gas, as well as renewables like wind turbines and hydro energy. The Arctic has also the critical raw materials that world need in a green transformation. All of this has to go to international market, and therefore the business of the Arctic is international by nature. like the indigenous communities that has traveled across borders with the reindeers for centuries, so does companies today when they send their goods across the borders. Today's main agenda is Arctic as a global transport corridor, sustainable Arctic shipping. Of all the things you buy in the world, 90% has been transported on the oceans at same point. Shipping is the best form of transportation in the globalized world. Here, the Arctic is uniquely located at the top of the world, connecting markets of Asia, Europe, and North America. Sustainable Arctic shipping has always been important for companies like Novatek, Sovcomflot, Gazpromneft, Norilsk Nickel, and Rosatom. One area I would like to highlight here are the opportunities along the Northern Sea Route. The opportunities along the Northern Sea Route are immense. The route will allow for shorter and faster shipping from Asia to Europe. This will decrease the CO2 emission and make supply chain more stable. It's a transport route in constant development, and you will hear more about this in details later today. And my colleague Artyom Fetkin from Novatek, he will demonstrate you how the Novatek is developing the production of LNG in Arctic, how we develop the Arctic shipping. And definitely the Novatek is a leader in the world in the transportation in Arctic. Global partnerships are important in the Arctic. It's a large region with few people living there. Therefore, the Arctic Economic Council welcomed the engagement from Singapore in the region. Singapore, like Russia, world leading in shipping and logistics and has expertise in shipbuilding, technologies, and management that will be useful for shipping in the Arctic. As a chairman of the Arctic Economic Council, I represent more than 45 companies working in the Arctic from more than 12 different countries. We wouldn't have any companies from Singapore yet, but we are open for the conversation with any companies that want to join and have an interest in the sustainable economic development of the Arctic. Finally, I'm looking forward to follow today's discussion and to read about Singapore's Arctic plans in the future in the coming strategies. And I thank you very much for your attention and wish you a good conference. I will get out of my office from time to time and disconnect because I have to deal with real Arctic issues without any interruptions. Thank you very much and see you later. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambrosov.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambrosov. And indeed, I've really enjoyed what you've been saying right now. That the Arctic region is answer to many challenges which mankind is facing, which humanity is facing right now. And this time of the vision of this region is very important. It is not just a region which is isolated, but this is the region which can meet the demand and meet the challenges of the humanity. It's the question of what can we do? How can we take advantage of these capabilities of the Arctic region? And speaking about today, that this kind of vision of the Arctic as a global connector, connecting different markets, connecting different countries, and which could be one of the fastest routes and fastest ways of connecting. It's also a very important perspective, which is not always highlighted in the vision of many companies. And here I absolutely, have to say that we are so happy that the Arctic Economic Council is open for the Singaporean companies. And I'm hoping that after our today's conversation, you will receive many applications by Singaporean companies to be a part of this council. And hopefully we will see the wide representations of the specialized Singaporean companies in the Arctic Economic Council. Once again, thank you so much, Yevgeny. Frankly speaking, you did not leave me much choice after your presentation, so I would like to give the floor not to keep the intrigue for too long, to Artyom Fetkin, the head of the Fleet Dispatching Center of the Marine Transportation Department of the Novatech Company. And I'm kindly asking Artyom to highlight on those activities which you, Nikolai, have mentioned. Please. Hello, dear colleagues. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, we can. May I kindly ask you to put up my presentation on screen, because I was planning to use this visual support, visual presentation. It's great. Thank you so much. And dear colleagues, today I would like to share about the contribution of the Novatech company in the marine transportation in the Northern Sea route, which for us today is one of the most important and key transportation avenue connecting our production, our factories with final consumers. Next slide, please. Right here, you can see on the slide the main projects which we do, projects which have been implemented or which are in the high degree of implementation, which are engaging the basin of the Northern Sea route in their daily, day-to-day activities. And I would like to give you more information about these activities today, and I want to share about our projects today, which are represented on this PowerPoint slide. And I want to share our vision of how we are seeing the development of the marine navigation in the northern territories with our partners, with the Sovcom float and other companies which are part of these operations. Next slide, please. Yamal LNG project, it's our first project in the Arctic region. It's a marine project related to the sea operations. It's the first plant to produce liquefied natural gas, LNG. In the last year, this plant has been put into operation in time, and some trains have been even ahead of the schedule. Almost 20 million tons of LNG has been produced and shipped to the buyers through the equatorial or basin of the Northern Sea route. Next slide, please. Another project at the other shore of the Okhsky Guba, it's Arctic LNG 2. This project is a high degree of implementations, and the production will be launched in 2023. I mean, the launch of the first train of the plant will be in 2023. This LNG plant has unique technologies when the placements of the production itself and the storages will be done on the gravitation type of foundations, and you'll have this kind of superstructures on top, which will be the storage in the plant and the mooring stations for the vessels. Next slide, please. To confirm about the high degree of implementations, this is the photo from September. This photo has been done in September. This kind of mooring marines where we will put the foundations of these gravitational types and for this kind of floating facilities, and we will bring the first platform from the city of Murmansk into the Obskaya basin in the August of the next year, and this will be another unique operation. I've asked my colleagues to give us the more updated photographs, the recent photographs. They have given me the recent photographs, but given the polar night, and this is the most presentable photo which I would like to show you. So we are just on the schedule. Next slide, please. Right here, I'm speaking about the center of building the large tonnage of the facilities in Murmansk. This is actually the factory which is producing the LNG factories and plants. It has the two dry shipyards where we have the building of those platforms, and on top of it we put the superstructure which is needed for the well-functioning, good function of the offshore plant. Looking at the next slide, this is what it looks like back in October of 2021. This is the train 1 for the Arctic LNG 2 project. But this is the photo done in October, so you are welcome to visit our website, Novatech website, and we have a special page dedicated to the Murmansk base plant. You can see the more updated and recent photo, you can see the progress, because again, it's a very, very impressive situation. It's a captivating. We've never had anything like that before, and now this is happening right in front of our eyes. Next slide, please. This is the logistical scheme of the Arctic LNG 2 to deliver the commodity products to the buyers. And we assume that we have the two transshipment stations on the western and on the eastern routes. So one in Murmansk and the second one at the Kamchatka Peninsula. And we are in progress. We are building the right infrastructure, which will be including all the necessary hydrotechnical and other facilities. And the transshipments will be done through the floating LNG storage facilities. And it's a quite unique vessel. It is not self-propelled, which is right now stationed, or which is, I'm sorry, being built right now. In 2023, this floating LNG plants will be stationed in Murmansk and at Kamchatka. At the same time, we will be able to do the board-on-board transshipment. And these floating facilities, they are provided as we will be having more and more volumes, and we can install the second trains to increase the volume of transshipments, which may be happening in Murmansk and at Kamchatka. And as you can see on this slide, you can tell that from the Obskaya we can go to the west, we can go to the east. And this whole concept is that we need to go to the east around the year. And we'll be also speaking about development of the navigations in the round year situation, 365 days. Next slide, please. I've already mentioned about that a little bit. Now you can see that you can see visually of why we will have to travel to the east using the Northern Sea route and not using the traditional sea routes through the Suez Channel in Europe. You can win a lot of time, it's time saving, and this means colossal opportunities to deliver cargo to the buyers via Kamchatka. And on a very short leg, they can take the cargo from Kamchatka Peninsula by transshipment vessels. It will be a very, very good strategy in terms of maritime navigation, logistics. We've made our math and calculations in the Northern Sea route after we launch Arctic LNG 2 plant, which will be the same capacity as Yamal LNG, 9.8 million tons. And we will be having up to 15 LNG tankers of the ice class, which will be doing the passages along the Northern Sea routes at the same time. And those, next slide please, and those vessels will be available to travel along the Northern Sea route. Like Mr. Sarchev has mentioned in his presentation already, and everyone who has been working in the Arctic region, they know it, you need a very specialized fleet of vessels. For the Yamal LNG project, we have developed the project Yamal Max. We've done many testings of these LNG tankers. We got 15 units of the LNG tankers, which provide the year-round transportations of the LNG from the Gulf of Ob through the basins of the Northern Sea route westbound. At the same time, the ice capacity of these vessels enable them to move into the eastern part, where we will have the special experimental trips to see what we want to get when we do the Arctic LNG 2. So our vessels, they do not need ice-breaking support, except of one location. But this is the sea channel of the Gulf of Ob. This is not related to the ice conditions, but this is related to the combinations of the ice conditions and with the safety of maritime navigation, because sometimes there are channels, and you have to be on your safeguard. You have to be very careful. For the Arctic LNG 2 project, we have developed a specialized. We have the Yamal Max for Yamal LNG, but for the Arctic LNG 2, given our experience of operating the fleet, we have upgraded this project of these LNG carriers. We have received different vessels which are under construction. There will be 21 LNG tankers with similar specifications. And this is very visual. It tells us that now the stern shape has changed. Now we see that these vessels are narrower, and in the same ice conditions, we will have the better ice capacities and better speeds compared to other vessels. You can see the sign. You can see the sign which shows the design capabilities, and when we did the testings, and now we have confirmed outcomes for the Yamal Max and also for the vessels of the Arctic LNG-2. And for the new design, of course, they are under construction, but we've done some testing in the ice basin, and the ice breaking capacity is so much better. Ice trafficability and ice breaking capability is so much better, and this gives us a lot of hope that all the conceived ideas will be implemented. As for the round-year navigation in the Arctic region, given the fact that previously there was not such a goal, nobody was pursuing this goal of the year-round navigation. We've never had vessels who would do the commercial navigation in the northern part of the Arctic region. In February, March, and April, we jointly with our partners, with the Sovcomflot company, and with other ship owners in Atomflot, we began the program of experimental voyages, which would enable us to receive a certain experience of shipping in the high latitude beyond the traditional navigation window. So we could see what is happening in those regions, because in real life, in these winter months, the Eastern Siberian Sea, Laptev Sea, in the long strait, when you look at the satellite images, and now we are able to see what our LNG carriers are capable of, and this gave us a priceless experience. And you can see the table with the results of these experimental voyages which we've done. The very first vessels were Vladimir Voronin vessel and Christophe de Margerie vessel. They left Sabetta eastbound in March. They went through this whole route, and it all worked out. One vessel has been followed by the icebreaker, because the icebreaker was paving the way for the first vessel. And then we made another voyages initiated in January of 2021. Two vessels left the Sabetta port on their own without icebreakers, and in January, from the east to the west, Nikolai Zubov LNG tanker was coming back, which was supplying the LNG to the Asian Pacific region in December. And one of our LNG carriers was being returned in February of 2021, which was never done before that. And this vessel was coming back with an icebreaker. The average speed was a bit less than 9 knots, and this program provided certain good outcomes. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. Now, these are the most important outcomes which we would like to highlight. Number one, all experimental voyages were quite successful. And this has been confirmed by our development strategy, that ice breaking support will be needed only for special locations to support commercial speed. And primarily, we are speaking about the regions of the 1 year thick ices with a lot of toroses. And the second part, given that these are the double-use vessels, they can go by bow and stern, and we assume that the new design of the LNG carriers for the LNG-2 will provide much better ice-breaking capacity and much higher speed whenever we do the research, either by following an icebreaker or doing their own voyages in the year-round regime. Next slide, please. Now, what is happening right now? I've told you about our plans, and I've told you of what we have in the navigations of the eastern sector of the Northern Sea route. And now we are thinking that we need an icebreakers at some particular spots. And now with the Rosatom float, we are attracting 3 nuclear icebreakers in the Obskaya Gulf, in Ob Gulf, and in Karsky Sea, and some other 2 vessels are providing the supply vessels, navigations, and the building material vessels for different projects, so that these construction projects in the Arctic region would not be stopped, would continue, and those cargo and building materials are needed the whole year round. And also we can use one of the nuclear icebreakers to do these experiments in supporting the LNG carriers in those extreme weather conditions, which are the maiden voyages, and while in November we can do our own navigation without icebreaking support. In February we're making a voyage with an icebreaker support, and we are going to continue this program. And next slide, please.
Так, еще один слайд, пожалуйста.
And one more, please. And this is our vision. Our vision of how we have to position the icebreakers to ensure the shipping and navigation, a year-round navigation of vessels for the Yamal and Arctic LNG projects with the ice class vessels. And since we have more and more vessels in the Gulf of Ob, it means that we have 2 icebreakers in the Gulf of Ob, and 1 icebreaker in the northeast part of the Arctic region, where we assume that they will be making ice channels for the other vessels. It means that we do not have to have the icebreaker stationed, and 3 icebreakers in the eastern sector of the Arctic. Probably the most complex locations which we are seeing right now. It's the eastern Siberian Sea, above the Wrangel Island, or a little bit below of the Wrangel Island, and also when you enter the Laptev Sea in the region of Novosibirsk Islands. If you remember, prior to that, I was saying that we had expected that we'll have 15 vessels in the Northern Sea Route basin, but every day there'll be vessels traveling both ways, and so we will have the special channels in the northeastern part of the Karsky Sea. I think this has been already decided. They'll be working very well, and also additional capabilities which are given by the big number of vessels which will be stationed there. It's an actual information about the current ice conditions, which we will know. It'll be the information which will be upgraded every 8 to 10 hours of what is happening with the ice situation, which will enable us to do the forecasting and to have a better forecasting and better operations for our vessels in the Arctic region. When passing dangerous spots and dangerous conditions, and also to keep the commercial speeds which are needed to deliver LNG to our buyers in the right volume and in the right time frame. I'm done. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you very much, Artyom. And I have to say that if I do the content analysis of your presentation, it seems to me that it looks a lot like such a conversation from the area of the great geographical discoveries. Many things which you do. Now, it reminds me the work of the pioneers. And, as I was listening to you, it was not very... you do not always hear that sometimes, people in different... Some part of this region was seen by people for the first time ever, thanks to these experimental voyages which you are doing. And of course, the year-round navigation is a very, very important issue of principal importance, not only to implement the LNG projects, but also for the transit. So the fact that you are doing this right now, it opens up the path for many and many companies in the future. And it's amazing how you have been working with innovations and innovations related to the ship navigation, maritime navigation, and onshore infrastructure. And here I would like to say that you've recommended to visit your website. I've been on your website a couple of times, and some of the video which I've seen on this website, I think when you watch these videos, just as a non-professional, it seems to me that your vessels, they are not something alien to the nature. They are looking, they're looked very organically. They are matching this kind of greatness of the nature, such a great vessels, and this very picture gives you a reason to believe that economical development of the Arctic region, it doesn't go against the nature, but it enables us to build economic prerequisites so that all of us would be able to take better care of the very fragile ecology and nature of the Arctic and implement our economic initiatives in the most sustainable way possible. Thank you very much once again, Artyom. Very inspiring presentation indeed. We all wish you every success in your further endeavors and developments, and hopefully Singaporean companies will have something to offer to you so that these operations would be even more successful and efficient. Thank you so much. And now, it's a high time to go back to our Singaporean partners. I would like to invite here Dr. Lee Tanhua, Research Fellow from the Earth Observatory of Singapore, Nanyang Technological University. And Dr. Tanhua, could you please share about your vision of the Arctic development and possible participation of Singapore in these initiatives? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for introduction. It's my honor to join this dialogue. So I would like to introduce the work me and our group did on the sea level changes in the Russian Arctic from past, present, and future. I'm Tan Hua Ni from the Earth Observatory of Singapore. And here are my colleagues and collaborators, including collaborators from the Moscow State University. Next slide, please. Before my presentation, I would like to introduce one project just funded by the MOE Singapore this year to study the relative sea level changes along the Northern Sea route, from patterns and rates to drivers and mechanisms. We try to investigate the mechanism that control the sea level change along the Northern Sea route, use the well-preserved proxy records like the sediments here from the salt marshes. Next slide, please. When we're talking about sea level, we need to know what process, what's the physics behind the sea level change. So if you see the next figure, you will see when the ice accumulated in the highlighted region, like for the Western Russian Arctic, the large amount of the ice sheet, they will depress the surface, and the surface will subside, push the mantle material flow back outwards. And near the ice margin, there will form a forebulge. When the ice melts, the surface will rebound, and the forebulge will collapse, mantle material flow backwards. And also due to the accumulation and the melted ice, the water will go into the ocean and take that from ocean. The sea level will rise and fall. In the right-hand side, you may see a geofigure, which shows you the gravitational attraction between the large ice sheet and the seawater. As you see here, when the ice melts, the attraction between the ice sheet and the sea level will decrease, which induces sea level fall instead of sea level rise, which means when the ice melts, the sea level will fall in the near field close to the ice sheet, but it will rise in the far field. For example, nowadays, the contemporary melting of Greenland ice sheet or Antarctic ice sheet melt. The sea level will fall in the near field region close to Antarctic or Greenland, but in Singapore, it will rise much higher than global mean, like 120%. So this whole process we call the glacial isostatic adjustment, which is known as GIA. The GIA process will dominate the spatial and temporal patterns of sea level change. Next slide, please. So here, as you can see, back to the last glacial maximum is about 26,000 years present. The global sea level was about 130 meters below present. With the ice melting, the sea level will rise and will significantly change the paleotopography and the paleobathymetry, and also the coastal topography, geomorphology. As you can, especially in the Russian Arctic, in the Western Russian Arctic, previously was covered by large ice sheet. When ice melt, the surface will rebound, and the sea level rise, and it will push the coastline landwards. And the adjustment of the land and the redistribution will change the sea level dramatically. So first, we will study the passive sea level change to understand what process control the sea level change. Use the J model to simulate, to see the parameters of the Earth structure and the past ice evolution history. So here we use the sea level database, which means this data can tell you the information about the sea level at a certain location, at a certain height during a certain time period. Like for the sea level index point, show you the height at a certain time. The limiting data, marine limiting data and terrestrial limiting data give you the information about the sea level at a certain time period. They give you an upper limit or a lower limit. The lower limit is the marine limiting data. The upper limit is terrestrial limiting data. Next slide, please. So here we try use the sea level data to constrain our model and to develop a new model, which is the optimal 3D model, as you can see here in light green. The old model, the 1D model, is in light blue. The horizontal axis is the time before present, in 1,000 years before present, and the vertical axis is the relative sea level. As you can see, when you compare the proxy data, the boxes or the reverse T symbol or symbol data with the prediction, which are shaded in light blue and light green, you can see the light green, they can retain the good fate that the old model they have in region 1, region 2, and region 19. They can also improve the fate that where the old model light blue show notable misfit around the White Sea region, like region 3 to region 11. So which means the new model, they can much better capture the performance of the Earth in response to the ice melting of the past. Next slide, please. So here, this slide shows you the present and future sea level change. We select two regions from two tidal gauge in the Western Russian Arctic and the Eastern Russian Arctic, from region 1 in the left-hand side and region 2 in the lower right column. As you can see, in the region 1, for the tidal gauge data, you see the continuous sea level fall. As I said before, because although the sea level is rising, but the land is uplifting and faster than the sea level rise. So finally, it reflects as sea level fall. And for the region 2, which is in the eastern part, this shows the sea level rise. But if you see the details, it depends on the time scale you choose. If you choose a shorter time window near present, you see it's accelerating. So which means the sea level rise is speed up. Next slide, please. So in the future, we try to do more fieldwork in the Russian Arctic. And as I said before, we have a new funded project to take more sample from the nearly the Bering Sea coast to better constrain the paleo ice evolution history. Because now we don't have much information about where is the margin of the ice between the eastern and western part that will control the land is uplifting or subsiding. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Li Tanhua. I want to say that indeed, when non-professionals are discussing this, and sometimes people are saying that, you know, this global warming means that the ice is melting, navigation is becoming possible, and around-year navigation and shipping is becoming possible. It's all simple. But when you are speaking with professionals, you know that things are different. There are some divergent trends, right? It is not as simple as ice melting and we have more shipping opportunities. Sometimes ice is melting, sometimes not. But the melting of the ice does not mean automatic ease of navigation, ease of maritime voyages. So we have a lot of questions about how, in what way what navigation is going to look like, what the sustainable navigation and maritime shipping is going to be like. We have many questions, and many questions are still in the zone of fundamental scientific research. And this is very important that we have international teams and institutes which are working, combining the resources, combining their capabilities in the Arctic region, as we keep saying, is the space of international cooperation, and not only of the business cooperation, which we are focusing on today primarily, but also of a scientific cooperation, because indeed it is very important to make sure that we give scientific justification to all those initiatives we are planning to implement in the region. And it is very important that this scientific justification would truly be an international and recognized on the international level. So we are very happy to see your work, and we're wishing you every success in continuation of your work and research, especially given that you have plans of increasing the field work in the Arctic region. And we are always happy. You're welcome. And please get warm coats and make yourself warm. And now, given this type of conversation we're having around the ice conditions and ice situation in the Arctic region, I would like to give the floor to Alexander Andreev, the counselor of the CEO on the issues of the safety of the Sovcomflot. Alexander Andreev, advisor to the CEO for safety of navigation of the Sovcomflot. Sovcomflot company knows a lot about sustainable navigation in the Arctic region. So, Alexander, over to you.
Thanks a lot. I am pleased to talk to you today. Our company has long maintained the goal that Sovcomflot crews will be the best trained and most technologically proficient mariners at Arctic. I am not sure how we could measure whether we achieved that goal, but I can tell you that we work very hard at it. Next slide, please. We specialize in marine transportation of leaky gas and other hydrocarbons. I am encouraged by some recent developments. We certainly welcome this approach and hope that masters are included in the users whose needs will be considered. Second, in the development of new IMA performance standard for ice navigation at Arctic region Polar Code, the participants were directed to ensure that the standards incorporated the requirement of SOLAS. As many of you know, the regulations state the decision made concerning bridge design, the design and arrangement of navigation system, and equipment on the bridge. And bridge procedure must be taken with the aim of facilitating the tasks to be performed by the bridge team and of promoting safe and effective bridge resources management. Technology can only do that. The developers of technology and the leaders in the IVE movement seek out and listen the mariners. Ice master with expertise in using technology under actual conditions and the places of greater navigation demand should play an important role in that dialogue. Next slide, please. Individual ice area are unique for each seas and terminals at Arctic region, and there are recognized limitations in the ability of staff and ships to reliably handle at nominated area of the base of port specification, application, and environment condition. In order to make a professional judgment as to the used information from emerging electronic navigation technologies such as ice charts, ice radar, and incorporated information on screen of EGDIS, A master should be familiar with the capabilities and limitations of these technologies. Self-conflict encourage its staff to be knowledge in the capabilities, limitation, and operation of ships, including ice. For this purpose, we have a special training on simulator at St. Petersburg. Next slide, please. The self-conflict encourage its crews to validate the information for safe ice practice and management. Those approach grow out of recommendation by Self-Conflict Masters Council. Members of the council are all active masters who find between their mastering arrangements to contribute their interest, background, and expertise in ice navigation technology to the Arctic. We particularly approved of the idea of marrying human factors with the development of new technology. This responded to real needs. It was consistent with the growing concerns among the shipboard personnel who must deal with ice management that does not always appear to offer any improvement over existing management technology. Also, there is much in the way of new ice management technology that excites masters and offers new possibility for improving situational awareness and expanding the resources availability to masters for ship navigation. Other form of advertised advances in navigation technology seem merely to have been developed to show what the developers can do. Next slide. And the principal question we need to address the Singapore side when considering it and a new technology solution. Also, ice management technology is generally recognized as capable of enhancing navigation safety. There are system limitation and accurate inaccuracies defects that can be further exacerbated by lack of repair base or by using unprofessional staff. Arctic require operator ice management. This can significantly affect the action being made, and ice information configuration have been placed in use in all vessels with the vision of ice fields. Usage built technology seems at times to be simply the product of an obsessive and sometimes not well thought out drive to integrate and automate. What was needed and still is needed, it seems to me, is for people to take a step back and ask whether a new item or system of technology serves any safety purposes. In other words, someone needs to ask, will it improve safety? Will it facilitate the work of the bridge crew? Will it provide genuinely use information to the bridge crew in a readily accessible format? Will it reduce the workload on the bridge crew? Could it be distracting? How will it be incorporated into navigation practice on the bridge? How kind of training will it require? How will the crew actually use it? Next slide, please. Satellite monitoring of the sea ice is the main highlight purpose for safety operation. Explanation of the ice covered area sailing makes it possible to research dynamic features and deformation mechanics of the ice field at Arctic Ocean. The main attention should be paid to the controlling physical mechanical phenomenon of the local and large scale. The hierarchic character of the failure and forming fractal structure of the Arctic Basin ice cover are incorporated and are direct consequences of the quasi-static cyclic processes in the system atmosphere, ice, ocean. It can be caused by tides, atmosphere pressure, surface and internal weights, nonlinear self-oscillating process and other. The value of the spatial temporal correlation of the process consists in the potential possibility to predict the change in time of the sum space of the ice cover from the previous system evaluation on the smaller scale level. The properties of the self-simulatory and self-organization can survive a prognostic indicator at the large-scale monitoring of the ice cover dynamic state. The study of the considered phenomenon is important to solving climate and weather predict tasks and for navigation safety. Dynamic of the fracture process of the drifting ice field must be monitored during ice sailing. Large-scale imbalance of physical mechanical process during compression and fracture of the ice field as a Arctic region enable us to consider ice field as self-organization fractal spatial temporal domain. The data of observation of velocity displacement and acceleration of the ice during a few years were analyzed for the purpose of safe navigation at Arctic. Primary cracks in the ice, mechanical self-accelerated oscillations, and fluctual gravity waves are processes of typical event caused by interaction of ice field. Features of these phenomena of interaction in the seismic atmosphere ice ocean can be considered as possibility of appearance of extreme event in the ice cover at the Arctic Ocean. Next, next slide. Therefore, I invite the developers, the manufacturers, the vendors, the regulation, and the promoters of ice technique to talk to masters. When you do, please consider masters as your partners in this movement. We are all interested in make year-round Arctic vessel navigation as safe, efficient, and environmentally friendly as it possible can be. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Александр Алексеевич. Очень
Alexander, thank you very much. Indeed, quite an impressive presentation. You know what? It seemed to me that again, when lay people, when non-professionals are speaking about the Arctic, sometimes they do not realize how scientific intensive it is to work for those companies in the Arctic region. This is what we have been discussing today for a number of times, the issue of the ice dynamics and the ice situation, its understanding, and it has a principal significance. It is not only the matter of scientific work, but also day-to-day operations, which you have demonstrated right now in your presentation. And I could also add that we have an extensive experience, like I've told you, with a special council of captains. We have published three books which are recommended to study in the marine institutes and marine universities. This is amazing. It's a great fact, and it's indeed is confirming that the development of the Arctic is the field where the science and the business are go hand in hand and are being mutually enriching. And only due to this kind of partnership would it be possible to build sustainable Arctic shipping, which would be, of course, year-round shipping. And on a separate note, thank you so much for two things which I would like to mention. Number one, thanks for inviting Singaporean companies to join your efforts, and probably some academic circles to cooperation. We're going to do whatever we can on our part to welcome this type of cooperation. Also, on your slide, there was a phrase that Arctic does not forgive haste. Arctic does not forgive haste. And I think that it's also a part not only of the ship navigation, but also to the general approach of developing the Arctic. We all have to understand that speed is not all important. Safety sustainability and long-term effort and responsibility should be of primary importance for exploring this region. When we speak about those facilities and ships and speaking about the Arctic as an ecosystem in general. Thank you very much, Alexander. And of course, we are wishing you every success in your further projects and endeavors in developing the Arctic region. Thank you. And I would like to go back to our Singaporean colleagues right now and give the floor to Robert Beckman, the professor emeritus of the law school, the head of the program of the Oceanic Law and Policies of the Center of International Law of the National University of Singapore. Mr. Beckman, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to this very, very interesting dialogue. I had my slides, but I don't think I'm going to use them. I'm going to follow the model that most of the speakers have followed. I will simply speak because I think some of it is too technical for a non-legal audience. I'm approaching this issue as a international lawyer who specializes in law of the sea and the international regulation of shipping. So we, of course, are interested in the rules on safety of navigation and protecting the environment through the Northern Sea route. And I'm looking at it from the point of view of what lessons, is there any lessons from Southeast Asia that could be potential models for Russian Federation as it looks at like opening up the Northern Sea route. And in my presentation that I prepared, if you anybody wanted to read it, they can get it from the organizers. I've taken the position that the cooperation mechanism that the three countries bordering the Straits of Malacca and Singapore created might be a useful model for the Russian Federation, because the cooperation mechanism is controlled by the states that have sovereignty over the waters of the Straits of Malacca and Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. But what they jealously guard their sovereignty in terms of regulating safety together with the International Maritime Organization. But they also came to recognize they had to cooperate and communicate better with the users of the Straits of Malacca and Singapore, not just user states, but also the companies, the shipping organizations, etc. And therefore, what they created was a cooperation mechanism that most important factor, I think, or element of it is it's a cooperation forum that meets every year. That forum gives the members of the shipping community, the user states, but also the shipping organizations, to be able to meet with the government officials to talk about what the government is planning in terms of new regulations on safety of navigation or protecting the marine environment. But they can also give feedback to the government as to their views on critical issues or issues that are not being addressed properly, etc. And resulting from that cooperation mechanism, they created a project coordination committee in which the user states are actually funding projects in the Straits of Malacca to enhance the safety of navigation and protect the marine environment, and an AIDS to Navigation Fund in which the users contribute to enhancing, protecting the safety by taking care of aids to navigation and ensuring that they're maintained. So I think it's a model that the Russian Federation could look at. There was the suggestion earlier that Singapore-based companies should join the Arctic Council and work together on safety of navigation and ship source pollution issues in the Arctic Council. I would argue that there's something in addition to that. There probably should be, say, an annual forum in which the Russian government meets with user states and companies that are interested in working in the Arctic to discuss the issues, because my sense is many of us in Southeast Asia do not know much about the complexities of the Northern Sea Route. We know it's primarily under the sovereignty of the Russian Federation, either as inland waters or territorial sea. We know that you have special powers under the law of the Sea Convention, Article 234 for ice-covered areas, but we also are not quite familiar with everything that's going on in terms of what the Russian companies are doing, which I am discovering today, and what the Russian government is doing with respect to improving navigational safety and protecting the marine environment, but also dealing with issues such as improving navigational charts and search and rescue services and oil pollution response and cooperation, etc. So my message would be as if there were an annual dialogue of this type, it is likely, and perhaps academic institutions could be invited as well. It is, in a sense, a dialogue similar to that taking place today. It probably should not be a one-off. If all of us could learn more about what is happening to the Arctic, then perhaps we could create partnerships or collaborations and do research on issues of common interest where we might be able to add expertise, etc. So that is in effect what I wanted to say. I'm looking at it from the point of view of the international regulations, whether we're dealing with the law of the Sea Convention or the Polar Code or Russian national legislation, and to what extent the national legislation could be complemented or could be supported by other research institutions, but also by companies based in Singapore. So with that, I would just thank you for enlightening me very much about a lot of what is happening in the Arctic, and I thank you for inviting me again.
Thank you very much, Professor Beckman. Да, спасибо большое, профессор.
Professor Beckman, thank you so much for your input and for your presentation. Indeed, the Arctic region and the issues of the Arctic shipping, it's a huge space. It is a big space for discussion when it comes to international legal aspects. International legal regulation, because there is a whole range of issues which we're still yet to address. And indeed, any successful international experience, especially so significant as the experience of Singapore and neighboring states about the Malaga Strait, should be used. And once again, I would like to thank you, Professor Beckman, for identifying very important role of this dialogue for increasing awareness of all the stakeholders about how can we, in what way can we grow and develop, like what is going on in the Arctic region today, and how can we develop the Arctic region in the future. Now, maybe the presentations of Professor Beckman, and maybe to add something from your perspective, please. We've been touched on by the Robert. Would like to draw your attention to the Public Council. It's a Societal Council of Developing the joint initiatives under the Rosatom Corporation. And this is a very efficient location where we have the users or the users of the shipbuilding companies and navigation companies which are using the Northern Sea route working from Arctic countries. And not only Arctic countries, we have some representatives of companies from China, we have companies from Korea, and we also have representatives of scientific research centers which are involved in studying the maritime issues. And also would like to say that within the Arctic Council, there is an information forum of the best maritime practices, of the best maritime navigation practices. And right now, the Russian Federation is a chair of this forum. It is a very important tool of raising awareness, of enhancing safety of navigation in these very high latitudes. And they are also discussing effective implementations of the Polar Code. And this is a very important instrument and tool. And we have to attempt to be more efficient in implementing the Polar Code and building recommendations. And the Russian Federation has been doing just that. And presently, I simply wanted to draw your attention to some screenshots and some photos we see. We can see that right now, this vessel, which you hopefully can see on the screen, with the Yamal icebreaker in very difficult conditions, is ensuring the delivery of the modules for the Arctic LNG-2 project for the Novatec company. Right now, I think right now you can see that there is a strong wind, 15 to 18 meters per second wind, a very strong squeezing. The ice is very rough and difficult. And while we're speaking in this studio, now we can see on this photo an example of successful international cooperation. And I'm sure that even China, in this module, module ship, in other technological solutions, we have the know-how and component of Singaporean companies, which is again tells of the importance of the international cooperation, because whatever we do in the Arctic, it's always a case of international successful international cooperation. And I would like to invite our Singaporean colleagues to it. In our today's conversation, I think we missed yet another contract which had been signed in the last year between the Rosatom Corporation and the port operator DP World. And this is actually another example of our intentions of the global marine operators. And there is a very close communication between the Singapore and the Singaporean companies. They are helping to build very efficient strategies. And we are expecting that right after this conversation, after this dialogue today, maybe at least one or two Singaporean companies will join the Arctic Economic Council, what Yevgeny Ambrosov has been speaking about. And indeed, it was a confirmation of our long-term intentions of the Singaporean businesses to work in these northern territories. Thank you very much, Nikolai. Indeed, the Arctic Council, with all its task forces and its different formats, they are indeed a working platform where we have the international legal discussions speaking about the Arctic territories development and the sustainable navigation in the Arctic region. And this is very important, that some of these formats are very open. They can be joined in, and in this sense, indeed, we have quite a big space for international cooperation. And thank you so much for this slide, for this photo of the moving vessels. And we should not forget that while we are sitting in these very warm rooms and facilities, and we can discuss about Arctic developments, right now, as we speak, somebody's working in very harsh ice conditions of the Arctic region. People have real work, they do real work and achieve real outcomes. These outcomes which are stipulated by international cooperation and those capabilities which are offered today. And I think I would like to give the floor to Vladimir Korchanov, the head of the marine division of the FESCO company, yet another big Russian logistics company which has been working in the Arctic region. Vladimir, can you please share your projects in the Arctic region and where you could possibly see the involvement of Singaporean companies in your operation? Hello, dear. Can you hear me? Yes, hello, dear participants. I've met some of my colleagues here today, and Evgeny Ambrosov and other colleagues. We've been working in the Far Eastern Shipping Company. This is the name of our company. Far Eastern Shipping Company is the global brand, and we as the company is probably the only multimodal linear operator in Russia. In addition to railway transportation and seaports, we have a marine transportation. We're only a big container shipper in Russia. I mean, on the level of the whole country. Speaking about the Arctics, the FESCO company has been involved in this topic for quite a long time. And for me, the Northern Sea route, whenever we have any conference, everybody's speaking about the Northern Sea route, and 90% of time, people speak only about one project, which is shipping hydrocarbons from the Ob Gulf to east or to west. There is another aspect of the Northern Sea route where dozens of vessels are taking general cargo to different ports, and thus developing onshore infrastructure and developing local populations, because these LNG tankers, they're great vessels. It's great that we've done it, we've built it, but they are routing far away from the shore. Sometimes it's 150 miles to the north from the onshore, from the shore territories. And for those transportations which we do as a FESCO company, we do not cross our paths. Arctics and the ice conditions is such a big and serious thing, you know. If 100 kilometers from the shore you have a big LNG carrier, which makes a huge corridor. This LNG tanker will not help you if you're stuck in the ice. Only if you get the icebreaker, which may come to help you. And I also would like to say that this whole topic of the Arctic development is not new. Now we're speaking about the new capabilities, but the very first commercial voyage was done in 1914 by the Far Eastern Shipping Company. It was a Tobol. They took to the Kolyma River some cargo, and the Far Eastern Shipping Company has been involved in this shipment. Usually it's a routine day-to-day operations. What am I seeing as the prospects of developing the Northern Sea route? It's great that you guys have this kind of LNG project. It's great because now we have a technological unit which can build ice roads on along the Northern Sea routes. Of course, these vessels are very expensive, and the sustainable shipping can be ensured only if you have a doubling capacity, double thickness of the bodies of the vessels against the conventional vessels which use through the Malaga Strait, passing this beautiful Singapore. And these vessels are so expensive. You cannot use them anywhere else. They can be working only along the Northern Sea route. So it is cheaper to build this kind of transshipment complexes, transshipment bases, so that these kind of ice-breaking, ice-class vessels would be working in the ice conditions, and then use other conventional vessels to deliver cargo or oil and gas to the buyers. Now we have a project on container business, so we're thinking that maybe Northern Sea route could be an alternative to the Suez Channel, which is the main deep sea route. But as a matter of fact, you take the same model, you take two transshipment bases, transshipment complexes, one in Murmansk for hydrocarbons, and second one in Petropavlovsk in the city of Vladivostok, because the city of Vladivostok is closer to these kind of routes of passages of these big vessels to those points. You know, the path of container ships is passing us, Petropavlovsk, and to build in this transshipment base, it would be better in Vladivostok. And also we have to build between the Murmansk and Vladivostok these big and beautiful and high-tech vessels, these great ships, which I'm hoping that after these 15 ships by Sovcomflot will be operating between these 2 points. Basically, they'll be ensuring the navigations. You cannot keep the canal more than 60 hours. If the vessel passed, it's only 60 hours, 60, before this canal will be frozen again. But again, speaking about the eastern part, maybe a lot of vessels can. You have like a mini trains, mini caravans. If we have an icebreaker and the icebreaker is followed by just a regular ice class vessels, you cannot build an unlimited number of icebreakers. We'll have like a 9 or 10, 15. It will be very, very expensive. Next slide, please. My clicker is not working, it seems. This is a container terminal in the port of Vladivostok owned by FESCO, and now its capacity is 800,000 of TEU. We've signed a contract with the Rosatom corporations, and we're going to be built a new terminal. We call it Eastern or Vostochny or Eastern Logistical Hub, which will be a part of this project of developing Northern Sea Route, NSR, for container shipments. Next one, please. Some statistics of how the container shipments have been developing in our port. And basically, you can see the trend. It's a containerization trend. This trend is persistent. This trend will be seen in the future. And this year, in 2016, we've been handling this amount now, like 330,000 TEU, now 730 TEU. Then it'll be over 2 million of TEUs. It's a good market. We can see the growth of this market, and for working on the NSR route, Northern Sea route, over 100 years, we are very, very cautious because we are, the guys who try to make all the precautions, but we can see the potentials, and we are going to develop the container shipments. So we are going to build this terminal with depth of even 16 to 17 meters in the port, and we'll be able to accept the container ships up to 20,000, possibly from the USA. They'll be going to Korea and China and unload part of the cargo, then go to the western part of the USA, going to Europe. And those cargo which is taken to the eastern part through the Atlantic Ocean. There is a market. Let's try to capture this market. Sometimes the weather is surprising us, and everybody's saying global warming, but now many of our vessels are frozen because, again, the ice is melting along this path, which is a deep sea route, and the shore is being iced. Ice is behaving absolutely independently of the global warming. For example, in this year, we got this heavy ice condition 1 month before the regular time on the Northern Sea route. But I was really, really surprised by the container market. If container market is going to behave the way it does and taking the same money from the clients, you can even take it through the Northern Sea route. You can ship it by air even, if the market is going to keep like that. If the market will be supporting this very high rates for container shipments, which will be insanely expensive as it is right now, it looks like this project will persist because technologically we have covered 75% of the way. Speaking about this Singapore, in our Singaporean colleagues, in 2004, with the Keppel company, we've been part of the tenders for Sakhalin oil and gas projects. We know our colleagues from Keppel. We know that Singapore is very strong in shipbuilding, in shipping, and they have some unique technologically very complex things, and geophysical vessels, scientific vessels, deep water diving to the bases of the platforms. This kind of vessels on the Keppels are done, of course, on the super high level. Temasek, which is an investment company from Singapore, in 2017 was part of the FESCO core capital. I think it was at 2%. Maybe still the FESCO. I didn't check it lately, but maybe still they own this capital. And when we'll finish building this port, now the model of Vladivostok port, we are entry port into the Russian territory. In English, like elongate. And Singapore is a hub in the classical shaping form. 99% will be CC shipment, C2C. And of course, we're going to study your experience and experience of your information systems, because they are different from the IT in information systems, which are our ports. We are going to study ecological aspects and how you manage them for the ships, to move from their own fuel to the onshore kind of power supply. This will be our new topic, and probably we're going to exchange experience. Thank you. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And some of your observations, very interesting observations, and I would like to begin and to say that you've mentioned what kind of the future we're speaking about and how many icebreakers, for example, we will have. General phrases are not always helpful, especially when we speak about this kind of very deep and serious questions as the Arctic. And I remember we've had a seminar with anthropologists from the St. Petersburg European University. And the anthropologists, which sometimes send their expeditions into the Arctic region, they say, you cannot even to speak about what Arctic, because everybody has their own Arctic in their head. Each of us has our own conception of the Arctic. It's a big space to look for mutual understanding and building the dialogue, because again, I will say it again, general phrases are not always helpful when it comes to hands-on experience and real-life work. And Arctic could be different for everyone. And again, at the same time, each Arctic and each of the company is open for international cooperation. And we are striving to do just that. I also would like to emphasize, you've been mentioned that you've been working in the Arctic for 100 years. And again, I'll say that for people who are not professionals in this field, especially in the warm countries, sometimes they say, go to the Arctic. We have to go to the Arctic. We have to protect the Arctic. We are always saying, listen, we've been in the Arctic for about 100 years, We're not the new guys. We've been developing the navigation and shipping. We have 10 million people living in the Arctic. 80% of them are living in cities in the Arctic, polar circle. They have a big industrial circle, transportation, infrastructure. How can you go to the Arctic as we've been in the Arctic for about 100 years? And in this sense, there is yet another reason to discuss what is Arctic, what it's like. Is it urbanistic? Is it industrial? Has it been developed or underdeveloped? It has a huge population. And of course, we're always trying, whenever we have a dialogue, to have a discussion on the most professional level in terms of the Arctical population, Arctic businesses and companies, and to place this kind of right emphasis. On a separate note, I would like to thank you for mentioning Singaporean companies. And indeed, the work has been ongoing. I'm especially happy that you've mentioned not only some technological potential for our cooperation, but also you were speaking about general business models, because again, Singapore is probably one of the most influential transportation hub in the world. It is not only some kind of the point of transportation, it's the whole set of services, high-tech services and special economic regimes. And in this regard, we can say for sure that SMP will happen when only the northern sea route will be working, if we'll have more and more communication, cooperation, and the more we'll be learning from our Singaporean colleagues of how to work in Vladivostok and in Murmansk, maybe then NSR will become globally competitive.
И я хотел бы передать сейчас
And I would like
слово
to give the floor now to the president of the Association of the Maritime Industries of Singapore, Mr. Simon Quick. Indeed, today we have been discussing a lot about shipping. Singapore is very well known as the shipping nation in industry and shipbuilding nation, and it is very important to discuss, and I would like to hear your point of view on the development of the Arctic shipping. So, Mr. Quick, over to you.
Thanks, Alexi, for your kind introductions. And warm greeting to everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to first thank the organizer for the opportunity to be here. And I learned a lot about Arctic over just last few hours from many of you. Please allow me to share about our marine and offshore industry, which ASME represent. I have about 5 slides to support my sharing. Please bear with me. We are an industry of more than 1,000 companies. And earlier on during the discussion, you have heard Keppel and New Star from my Singapore colleagues. And other notable companies within the industry include Sembcorp Marine, ST Engineering, Pac Oceans, and many other international companies that operate out of Singapore to support as a total ecosystems. We are pleased that we are already actively participate in Arctic development. We have developed and designed, built many ships and oil rigs to serve in all world oceans. Many of them are deployed in Arctic and also ice-affected regions. Next slide, please. We hope to contribute to sustainable and also economic Arctic development in many ways. Relevance to my association, I think I'd like to highlight 2 particular aspects. The shipping has been spoken a lot earlier on, and Singapore is a busy international maritime centers with a lot of large shipping companies based in Singapore. We handle about 25% of the trades through us, connecting to about 600 ports. And I think with that, we are able to share our connectivity and also our experiences with the Arctic ports and development. And earlier on, we hear FESCO sharing on your development, and that is exciting updates, and look forward that there are some opportunity that we can discuss about on the port development. More closer to my heart is marine offshore engineering, which I represent. That's the second bullet point. And I'll share more in the next couple of slides. So basically what we will address is, as an industry, is to produce product solution and deliver to our customer, all types. We build strong reputation in offshore oil and gas rig and floaters. Many of them are LNG solution, and I highlight some of them later on. Offshore wind solution and specialized ships. We operate in the all ocean. Singapore being a small nation in topics and in Southeast Asia, but our product solutions are delivered far away in tens of thousands of kilometers away, like even in Brazil, oil and gas, North Sea, Europe, and in Barents Sea, which is part of the Arctic Sea. And there are opportunity for us to not just collaborating on the basis of delivering product solutions. We are also important centers for technology collaboration for sustainability and also maritime decarbonization. I'll share more in the next 2 slides. Next slide, please. Our product solutions for the Arctic. Feature here are some of the solutions that we designed for Arctic and Antarctica. We have seen some of the vessels in earlier presentation. The one on the left top is actually the 2 modules which was mentioned earlier on, built by Singapore Yard. In fact, that is Sembcorp Marine Yard, delivered to Yama. On the top right is a LNG bunker vessel, designed and built by Keppel, will also be delivered to the Yama regions for operation. This LNG product solutions helps to reduce the carbon footprint for any marine asset by as much as 30%. These are the new breed of the vessels that feature ice-breaking technology that can operate in sea ice of 2 to 4 meters without escort. We deliver also many drilling and production platforms to various coal areas. The vessel on the left bottom is Johan Castberg, is being constructed in Sembcorp Marine Yard in Singapore. will be delivered to Barents Sea soon. The vessel on the bottom middle is a expedition cruise vessels target to provide expedition to Antarctica and Arctic. And these are the vessels that has to be designed with good technology, high quality to ensure the safe operation of this vessel in the harsh environment, and also at the same time taking care of the comfort of the tourists. The two smaller pictures on the right-hand side, one of them is a security vessels for American sector of the Arctic, and also one in Estonia, ferry that operate in the lesser challenging location, which has to resist sea ice. Okay, this is in the Baltic Sea. Okay, you can see that the product solutions are being delivered to different part of the ice affected area. Okay, next slide, please. In addressing the climate change and its impact, we invest into the future in two ways. One is to future-proof our operation by building new facility that can cater for the climate change, and also at the same time investing in new innovation and solution. First, on the future shipyard, like many national infrastructure in Singapore, airports, the coastal facility, and in the picture on the right-hand side top is our Sembcorp Marine Tuas yard built recently at 1 meter higher than the old datum line. This will allow us to be able to cater for 100 years of expected sea rising level. We also use in the new facility renewable energy to reduce carbon footprint, the scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, and also total footprints for product solution. On the future ships, Singapore is fast becoming a maritime innovation hub where we develop some few hundred designs for different type of ships, increasingly more using new fuel and also decarbonize. Besides being able to develop those solutions, the companies are also coming together to collaborate among themselves as a business entity, and also at the same time collaborating with a national research institution, like say for example, our National Ocean Tank TCOMS, our Global Center of Maritime Decarbonizations, and also we do get support from Energy Study Institute, which my colleagues Christopher Lenz is represented here today. So we invest a lot in to ensure that we minimize the impact of climate change, and then ensure that we can future-proof our future existence. New fuel that we are focusing on are for maritime methanol, hydrogen, and ammonia. You are welcome to partner us to develop new carbon future using either commercial platforms, private collaboration, or with our national institution. Lastly, last slide. I thought it's useful. Last slide, please. I thought it's useful to use this slide to end my introduction. I'm a nature lover. And also in a company, other than being head of the technology, I'm also head of the sustainability for Sembcorp Marine. This is the time of year for bird migration, and Singapore is a critical pit stop for migration birds. For as far as the Arctic Russian sectors, fly through a connected nodes of different reserve, and Singapore being one of them, as part of the Eastern Asia Australian Flyway. So they started their annual flight from, say, Russia. We have golden plover and common red shank are from the Russian Far East region. And we are pleased to not just serve as important partners for economics, for environmental aspect, and also for nature. And we are pleased to partner you in all different fronts. For my own industry, more importantly, as your critical nodes in the global maritime ecosystems for Arctic development. And I thank everyone. I learned a lot about Arctic this afternoon, and I'd like to take any question if you may have of our association or the work of our industry. Thank you very much.
Действительно поразительно, насколько...
Yes, it's quite amazing just how powerful, how strong is your ecosystem of the shipbuilding industry of Singapore. And it is very important that it's a very open ecosystem, which includes many participants from other countries, like you've shown us on your slides today. And indeed, it's a great example of international cooperation, successful international cooperation. It would be difficult to imagine shipping which could be done by just one country alone. And now we're speaking about the global ecosystem with international participants. This is so important. And the Arctic region is such a platform, should I say a platform, where we need all the maximum international cooperation. We need the best technologies, best in class, and you've been speaking about technologies of decarbonizations. And yes, it's hard to overestimate the significance of such technologies for the future and such solutions for the Arctic navigation, because we all understand that Arctic is fragile as an ecosystem, and this is why it is very important to make sure that all the solutions, all the technological innovations which will be applied in the Arctic would be very responsible and very ecological friendly, especially when we speak about the carbon footprint. And as of today, like you've mentioned, you have many solutions which enable us to do just that. Many solutions are yet to be discovered and yet to be done, and we're hoping that a big part of these solutions could be tried in the Arctic region, could be based on the Arctic resources. We also speaking about the possibility of producing ammonia, methanol, and hydrogen in the Arctic region, and also using these solutions and fuels, using those fuels in other basins, in other water territories, based on those testing outcomes which could be done in the Arctic region. And so in this way, it is important to ensure the involvement of international and global partners. They can try something in the Arctic region, do the pilots in the Arctic region, and then to expand it to different territories. Thank you so much, Mr. Kuik, for your review and for your presentation. And we are hoping that your association will consider this invitation of Mr. Ambrosov to be a part of the Arctic Economic Council, that hopefully you'll become the members of the Arctic Economic Council. Well, we are nearing to the end of our discussion today, dear colleagues, and basically all what we have been expecting to hear from our panelists and from our invited professionals has been said, and I'm kindly asking to share your impressions of the discussion and to say some concluding remarks for the further cooperation. I'm asking the special envoy for the Arctic issues on the Singapore, Mr. Sam Tan. I'm kindly asking, Mr. Ambassador, would you be so kind to share your perspective? Thank you.
For giving me the floor. Ambassador Kochunov, Ambassador Ong Kim Yong, Executive Deputy Chairman of RSIS, Mr. Andrei Sharonov, President of Moscow School of Management, Skolkovo, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies and also the Moscow School of Management, Skolkovo, for co-organizing this very meaningful webinar. I also want to thank the panelists for the excellent and engaging discussions. Even though Singapore is located close to 12,000 kilometers away from the Arctic, the effects of climate change there, in particular, the melting of the polar sea caps, ice caps, pose a threat not just to the immediate surrounding region, but also to low-lying islands around the world, such as Singapore. And as a small maritime nation situated at one of the most important shipping lanes in the world, Singapore is naturally keeping a close watch on the possibilities and opportunities that the opening of the Northern Sea Route presents for international shipping. In 2016, I had the privilege to sail from along parts of the Northern Sea Route from Anadyr to Prevent on Russia's nuclear-powered icebreaker, 50 years of victory. It was then the world's largest vessel, icebreaker, but of course now it has been surpassed by another Russian-made icebreaker, Arctica. This particular journey allowed me to witness firsthand the rapid development and also the opportunities in the Russian Arctic. The opening of new Arctic water channels, such as the Northern Sea Route, could significantly reduce shipping travel time between Asia and Europe, and potentially boost the maritime industry, although the full cost of commercial transportation in the new shipping lanes is still not fully known yet. A new shipping route could also complement Singapore, which has one of the world's busiest ports and will receive about 120,000 vessels each year. And this translates to about 300 ships calling on our port every day and 12 ships every hour. And as a seafaring nation, our marine industry has developed decades of experience and strong credentials in shipbuilding and repair, offshore engineering, port operation and management, and marine support services. With all this, Singapore can further contribute to the development of maritime infrastructure to help facilitate safe shipping in the Arctic region. In fact, several Singapore shipping companies, such as Keppel Offshore and Marine, had developed icebreakers and offshore rigs that are operating in the Arctic. Other Singapore companies, such as ST Marine and Sembcorp, also have the required competency to construct ice-class vessels. And incidentally, I was told that Keppel was also the very first Asian shipyard to have built icebreakers. As mentioned by distinguished panelists earlier on, the economic development of the Arctic must go hand in hand with sustainable solutions in the context of climate challenges, as well as the development of technology and innovation for sustainable shipping. Sustainable development is one important area that requires collaboration from all stakeholders, which we have emphasized in the recently launched Singapore Green Plan 2030. So in this regard, Singapore welcomes and fully supports the Russian Arctic Council Chairmanship's theme of a responsible governance for sustainable Arctic. The key areas of focus, people, environmental protection, and socio-economic development are important, not just to the Arctic, but also globally, especially as we take steps to emerge from the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. Singapore looks forward to closely working with the Russian chair to contribute meaningfully to the work of the Arctic Council, including supporting the work of sustainable development of the Arctic and environmental issues such as marine litter and green shipping. And thank you very much for your kind attention. Now back to you, Alexei.
Действительно, сегодня после...
Indeed, today, after our discussion and your final remarks. I think all the members and all the panelists and all those who are watching us and will be watching us later, now hopefully it has become much more clear why we are speaking about developing the Arctic region along with the Singapore and Singaporean companies. Yes, this space of potential areas of cooperation is huge, and I am confident that we will be seeing many new initiatives. And listening to your presentation, your speech, I would like to emphasize one point, that you have gotten an opportunity to see the Arctic with your own eyes. You've been on the Northern Sea route, you've visited the Northern Sea route before making any judgment, any perspective about this. And I think it's the most important thing. It is difficult to imagine what Arctic is without ever stepping onto the Arctic soil. And using this opportunity, I would like to invite all of our panelists, all of our members, all of our guests today. If you've never been in the Arctic region, please come join us. Please make your own impressions. Visit the Arctic region, and I believe that after even one such a visit into the Arctic region, people fall in love with the Arctic region, and people want to come back to this region again and again. And some people even decide to stay and live in the Arctic region. And we're hoping that this will be the case. And the Arctic is a place for living, as the magnet for talents, not only for high technologies, but also a magnet for people. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for your amazing speech and your inspiring words. I also would like to give the floor to Nikolai Viktorovich. Nikolai, would you be so kind to also make a couple of remarks and maybe draw a conclusion and to give your final remarks for this bilateral communication? Thank you. You know, first of all, I would like to say that the Singapore, which is 4,000 kilometers from the Arctic region, has become closer after today's dialogue session. And secondly, if anyone had any doubts, any concerns and any doubts about the potential and capability of Singapore to explore the Arctic region, this today frank and open conversation dispelled any myth and any concerns. And I want to say that technological cooperation, economic cooperation, in the best interest of developing the Arctic region and developing shipping and navigation in the Arctic region, it's the need. It's the viable need. We need smart solutions. We need scientifically justified solutions, and we need very close economic and ecological and technological collaboration. And this partnership between the Singapore and Russia, in the interest of the sustainable development of the Arctic region, in the biggest sense of the word, this would be the navigation and any other maritime operations. In view of the competences which Singapore has, make me confident that all those challenges and tasks we are facing today will be done, we will overcome, we will manage them if we will be staying in close cooperation with Singapore. And we are hoping that our today's conversation will be the part of the process, the part of the ongoing dialogue between the Russian business community, Russian organizations, and representatives of Singaporean companies and Singaporean business when it comes to sustainable development in the Arctic region. And it will become the impetus and will give the push to the development of our economic and ecological cooperation in the interest of developing the Arctic region. And we have a very positive mindset. We're hoping for the next meetings. Would like to thank Alexei Kalinin and the Skolkovo School of Management, which is welcoming us today, and they were able to organize this amazing dialogue through your Glassroom platform. Thank you so much, and we'll be waiting for the new events, and please invite us for future events. Thank you so much again. Thanks, Nikolai Viktorovich, and I would like to thank you for your kind words. We're so happy to be the part of this process. And indeed, the Skolkovo School of Management It is important for us. It's important for us to be the platform for such a dialogue of business community, the business community of the diplomatic community, and using this format of communication. Would like to thank you, Nikolai Viktorovich, for your ongoing support, which you are providing us for quite a long time, actually. And we do hope that we will have many new discussions like today's discussion. And today we have been speaking about the wide range of issues. We've been speaking about technological development in the Arctic region. We've seen that these things are science intensive. Even day-to-day operations which are happening in the Arctic region today are very scientific based, and the next development of the Arctic region in view of the goal to make it sustainable, to make it ecologically responsible, it will require many new technologies, and many technologies which are today only on the stage of fundamental research and scientific exploration. It is very important for the business and scientific community to go hand in hand so that we implement these technologies and to ensure sustainable development of the Arctic region. We've been speaking about decarbonization today and low carbon development of the Arctic region related to expanding such technologies as nuclear power and alternative renewable sources, ammonia, hydrogen, methanol, and other fuels. And one important factor is being able to build production facilities for producing these fuels in the Arctic. And this infrastructure still has to be developed. It's a big technological challenge which could be faced along with our Singaporean colleagues. Another topic we've touched upon today would be the ice conditions, ice situation, and how the ice is going to be changing the climatic changes, which are not making navigation easier but making more complicated. And in this sense, shipping and building new vessels, building new rules for maritime navigation is important aspect. And right here, we are also speaking about digital solution and digital technologies, and we can also tap into the very rich experience of the Singapore. So it's the whole package of technological cooperation is very huge, and we are very hopeful. We are very hopeful looking at these capabilities which are being opened up right now. But in addition to technological cooperation, I want to say that Singapore is not only one of the technological leaders in shipping and navigation, but it's also one of the leading global economic and logistical hubs in the world. And this lesson, which we can also take, and we can try to use it for Arctic route. We have to say that both Murmansk and the ports of Vladivostok could learn many things from our colleagues from the Singapore. We can cooperate not only in technologies but also in management systems and building economic zones and regimes. And also, like we were saying, Arctic is urbanized by 80%. 80% of the Arctic population, about 80 million people, they live in cities in the Arctic region. And Singapore is the leader of sustainable urban development. And in this sense, maybe one of the topics of our subsequent conversation could be about how to make Arctic cities more sustainable. And also, we are thrilled and excited with the Singapore economic miracle, and this economic miracle is significantly attributed also to Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, and we are only dreaming that Arctic could become yet another economic miracle in the Arctic, and we are hoping that our partnership with Singapore will help us somehow to take these lessons from Singapore and to make them a reality in the Arctic region. But most importantly, I believe that all of us today, we are like-minded people. We are sharing this vector of development. It is important for us to remember that Arctic does not forgive haste, and the sea likes those people who are taking good preparation. Let's meet, let's discuss, let's plan, and By being here, sometimes we do not realize how little knowledge people have, those people who do not live in the Arctic region. And thankfully, these kind of dialogues will raise awareness among different peoples and different people groups. And hopefully in the future, we will be a platform, such a dialogue of business, diplomats and experts and science communities to make sure that we make the Arctic region more sustainable and prosperous. Thank you once again for your participation. I would like to thank our Singaporean colleagues and the Russian colleagues. And until next time at our Arctic Dialogues here in Skolkovo, have a great day and bye-bye.